Hi, George Fasching here, helping you unlock your team's genius. I am very grateful that I get to work with several leaders as their executive coach. And as you might expect in coaching, we are working very much with goals. Goal setting is absolutely vital because without having any idea of where we want to go, we will never quite be sure of, first of all, how to get there and when we've gotten there. So goal setting is a great tool that we work very closely with in coaching, and it is really useful for anybody really, whether you are working with a coach or just on your own. Now, there are certain periods over the course of the year where people tend to get a bit more motivated to set some new intentions for themselves. New Year's, for example, is a time where some people like to form New Year's resolutions. I personally don't rate New Year's resolutions all that highly unless they are turned into some real, actionable and tangible goals. And for that purpose, I have found that a lightweight structure ends up working best to support people in not only identifying their goals, but also helping them track their progress towards them and help them to also realize why those goals might be important to them. So I'd like to share this template with you, and let's take a look. So you'll see that this is truly a lightweight template. It is taken and slightly adapted from a book that I got to study called Effective Coaching by Miles Downey. And we are only looking at really 3 columns. And I suggest we start with the middle one first. So the middle one is titled the success goals. You could think about this as the what goals. These are usually the first ones we start with because they're quite tangible, they're easily accessible, and few people actually have a good idea of what they want to pursue. Now, one of the first questions we need to ask ourselves that tends to come up when I use this template with my coaching partners as their executive coach is to think about the time frame that we want to look at. So we are typically looking at somewhere around 3 to 6 months, maybe a little bit more. But usually when we get to 1 year, then we want to think about breaking down the goals into more sizable and manageable chunks. And with that, the goal also becomes a lot more achievable. So it's also worth noting that as people, we tend to overestimate what we can achieve in a shorter period of time, such as a calendar month, and we tend to underestimate how much we can achieve in the larger period of time, say 1, 5, or maybe even 10 years. So let's bear those in mind when we use a template like this in order to help us set our goals. So what we want to identify in the success goals column is really the what. So if you're familiar with SMART objective setting, that's a useful technique to also formulate the goals here in this column. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely or time-bound. And just helps us to think through and actually note down what it is and when it is and how we're making sure we're getting there and ensuring that we have something that is challenging yet also realistic and achievable. So that's the easy one done. Now let's look over to the right column, which is the experience goals column. That's really the why behind the what. What is it that drives you as a person to want to achieve those goals? Who will you have become once you have achieved them? And what's the underlying meaning for you as a person that drives you to work towards those goals? And what will it be like as a real experience for you to achieve those goals? What will it feel like? What will you see, hear, smell when you are actually then realizing that goal and once you have achieved it? So to already cement in your mind what the outlook will look like after achieving the goal. And doing that vividly in your imagination acts as a really good anchor so that your brain has something to strive towards and to work towards. So with that completed, we have covered the what and we have covered the why. Leaves the left column. So that covers the learning goals. So this is the how. How do we get to the what's? What is it that we need to perhaps learn, that you need to cover in terms of skills development or knowledge development, what you need to research, and what connections do you need to make in order to help you to progress towards your goals, right? So in the middle, we have the what, on the right, we have the why, and on the left, we have the how. And doing this exercise to start off with in order to write out your goals, it can happen that once you've written out, you actually realizing that perhaps you're not all that passionate about those particular goals, which is great learning, because then you can redirect the energy required and find some goals that are much more in tune with what you want to achieve, what you want to get out of life, what you want to get out of work. So the other aspect of this is also to ensure that you keep track of your pursuit of these goals. So if you're working with a coach, the coach will of course help you with that. If you don't, then I recommend that you set yourself some quality time aside with yourself in your calendar, and just as you do with other appointments, set up an appointment with yourself in a regular frequency so that you have a regular check-in point to help you keep yourself on track in the pursuit of your goals. So say every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks is good. Shouldn't really be much more than that, because that doesn't really give you enough time to adjust and make inspection and adaptation cycles to your goals and the efforts that you are putting in order to realize your goals. All right, so if you have any further queries or any comments on this, please let me know in the comments. This type of lightweight structure I have come to using with the coaching partners, as I mentioned, and it provides enough structure to provide enough guidance, and is not really overbearing in the upkeep or the initial filling in, and tends to work quite well as a happy medium of freedom and structure, if you will. So I wish you all the best in the pursuit of your goals. Please let me know how you're getting on, and all the best until the next one. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.